Greetings, this is I, Cantus Narrative, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. You're joining me, of course, live on the Twitch side of Dracovin Empire. Welcome. Good to enjoy being here and seeing my sultry tones live. I've reached a rough part of beard. But if you're joining me on YouTube, well, hello YouTube. You also get to enjoy my rough beard, except you're more of a legacy, and you can already see. By the time you see this, the beard might be fixed. It's Spooktober, towards the back end of it. We still have a few more spooky-ish topics to talk about. And this is one that, well, Vampire the Masquerade can always be kind of spooky, but in my exploration of what the hell haven't I talked about, I discovered I hadn't had an individual episode on ghouls. Why didn't I? I must have missed it years ago. This is like something that I would have thought I would have done back in the old days of videos and stuff like that, in my strict content, which you can check out on YouTube. But regardless, though, today, as I try to inhale phlegm in my own throat, we're going to talk about ghouls. So yes, if you're joining me, as I said, on Twitch, hey, here's my question. Well, either way, you're joining me on Twitch, you're joining me on YouTube. My question for you today is, have you, what kind of stuff have you had in games that have had ghouls as an important character? You know, whether or not, I know there are rules for playing them, it's very rare to do that, but also things like just having important NPCs or story moments or revolving around them. I'm curious where your uses of them, either as a in relation to you as a player or as a storyteller. Now, I'm also going to say I did find a lot of imagery for ghouls and a lot of books for ghouls, and this is where ghouls are an issue on two sides. On the book side, there's a lot of books used to talk about ghouls. I'll go over a bunch of them, but the thing is, they're just everywhere. There's a few books that are ghoul-centric, but they tend to be a little older. And then there is some, honestly, a lot of the major imagery, especially with the Clan Ghoul collection, is just, ghouls are very subservient, unfortunately, and not in always the best way. So we'll save those. We got one that's pretty decent that I'll be kind of putting up when we deep dive into some mechanics side of things. I'll throw that one up. But yeah, we'll have to talk about it. We'll look at it. It's just that I don't know. I feel like it doesn't age as well. Things don't a lot of times. Wow, just choking on my own phlegm. Sorry, excuse me. Just get some water in my throat. In older RPGs, especially in a lot of systems, they don't age as well. And you have to look at both the intention of where they were coming from and the time period when you look at and reference a lot of these old materials. This one's very late 90s, early 2000s, which doesn't sound that long ago, but honestly, the 2000s was like 20 years ago, so that's a while ago. Anyway, as I was saying, I was starting the over every corner. That's Let's talk about some books. Now, as I say, I do reference these books, and today I did do some looks into a few of these books here, but I don't want to go into a super deep dive because there isn't really a need to in this case, I think. But if you want to go into a deeper dive into a lot of ghoul stuff, I do recommend checking out this. The Clan Book Simiche. I think this is the second edition. Let me just check and make sure which book it is. This is the second edition Vampire Clan book. That's a place to look. Sabbat book from 5th edition. So if you're looking for some 5th edition information, they mention some things in the Sabbat book. It's a tiny book, but that's the Ghoul's Fatal Addiction source book, which is an older one. This here, which is just a leatherback tome, is actually the Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. And the Ghoul's Fatal Addiction is, I believe, original edition of Vampire. Because it was from 97. We can move on for books to also check out. Liber des Ghouls, Book of the Ghouls for Mind's Eye Theater. So this actually, let me just show you. You can see that's Mind's Eye Theater book. This is your Ghouls when it comes to Mind's Eye Theater. Again, Mind's Eye Theater is very intrinsically linked. It's the LARP version. And of course, Ghouls and Revenants book for 20th anniversary. I would recommend. And here's the single for Ghouls. We'll use the bigger page. Alright. So, let's start by the most basic thing that we want to talk about. What the hell are ghouls in Vampire the Masquerade? Certainly plenty of us have heard that term, and if you're familiar with Vampire, you know. If you're less familiar, maybe you want a bit of information here. Effectively, it's a minion created by a vampire. And normally, to create a vampire, you drain someone of all their blood, and then give them some of yours. And that starts the process of embracing someone. For a ghoul, you skip one of those steps. Don't drain them all of all your blood. You basically give vampiric blood, vitae, to a mortal being without draining them first. So they don't get embraced, they become a ghoul. And it's important to note also, ghouls don't just have to be human, there are animal ghouls. And yes. So basically, the idea is that you feed a living creature a little bit of vampire blood, and it becomes a ghoul. At least temporarily. I'm going to blow my nose. I'm going to mute myself and blow my nose. I was nice enough to all you out there. Ghouls are servants, easily created, and oftentimes heavily abused in the vampire world. They are very low in the totem pole. They are treated terribly. There are ways that they have to networks to help ghouls escape masters, especially very cruel ones. And a ghoul's emotions run very extremes. Again, we'll talk about how this is played down, I think, in a way for the best in 5th edition, but the idea is that vampire blood is almost drug-like a little bit. The thing is, you need to keep getting vampire blood to keep being a ghoul. That's a very important idea of it. And also, a ghoul can get blood bonded just like another vampire. And if your creator, your master, keeps giving you blood, you get blood bonded to them. You get connected to them. So, a ghoul can fall prey to rages, cravings, things like that. The idea of using the word ghoul as a term, they were chosen by vampires. It's meant to be derogatory to these beings they're created. It's meant to show the subservience. And it's shown in this just little bit here I'm talking about, how intrinsically bad the system is for ghouls. But again, it's sort of like, you are getting that blood to gain some vampire benefits. So that is the thing. Benefits. There are some. A ghoul that has taken in blood from a vampire, aging stops. And sometimes even slightly reverts. They get limited access to some disciplines, faster healing. But again, then you're truly dependent on the blood. Because if you stop getting the blood, if you run out, if you're denied access, certain things like, hey, you revert to your true age. That can be fatal, especially if you're an older ghoul. So, dominators are the people that are in charge of ghouls. A ghoul's master. That's the term for them. And you can see that is a very dominators dominating through the blood bond and control. Though some do use techniques like dominate to help dominate them even more. It's basically, in a way, a ghoul is a slave to a human monster, a vampire, and are treated like both a snack and a chess piece. And that is the darkest area of being a ghoul. There are better places that you can be, but again, it's sort of like being a ghoul is not great in most of the time. There's some exceptions, we'll talk about them. But yeah, you gain some stuff. You're more than immortal, but it's just the relationship isn't great. Most oftentimes. And it's not to say that there can't be unique times where the relationship is better, especially depending on how much humanity your Dominator has. If you have a very human Dominator, a master who is very human, they're probably going to treat you better than, the person over down the lane who has zero humanity and is going to abuse you and treat you like dirt. Is the benefits you're going to get outweighing the penalties? Immortality, some powers, faster healing. Is that the abuse? That's a tough question. Immortality versus abuse. So, of the various clans, each of them treat, oftentimes, and have different needs for ghouls. That's an important thing, too. What clan you're being part of, in a way. Ventru use ghouls extensively. Many of those ghouls are aware that they're extensively used. Smiche are fond of them, but they use them as what would be best described as modeling clay, and experiment them on. Smiche are flesh weavers, so yeah. They use them as bodyguards and shock troops. They often also combine together into Gestalt war ghouls, called the Za. Throw a bunch of you together. And some ghouls have even unlucky enough to become architecture for the Smiche. They're in the Sabbat, Fleshweld ghouls. Whew. Animals can be made there. Nosferatu favor that a lot. And other users that use animalism. Animal ghouls are larger, mutate, kind of parodies of their original creatures. Those animal ghouls can also develop a taste for blood, regardless of their original diets. So, now we break down into ghoul categories, because this is the important part here, because there are 3 groups of ghouls we can talk about. And the major one that most ghouls are going to be are vassals. Ghoul vassals. A lot of what I've talked about so far, and the huge negatives to bonus of being a ghoul, mostly come in from ghoul vassals. They're pulverized through a vampiric society, they're treated terribly, they are your main group of ghouls that you can find. They're the stereotypical ones, and unfortunately they are, in a lot of places, the punching bag for vampire society. The vassals are basically the normal people of ghouls, in a way, too. They're just the average individuals. So, a lot of ghouls might not even know what's going on. They kind of are just drawn into it. It's a thing that there is a lack of choice and control when it comes to being both created as a vampire and as a ghoul. There's always been a kind of thing. A vampire doesn't choose to be a vampire most of the time. A ghoul doesn't choose to be a ghoul. A vampire can at least maybe break away from their terrible situation. They've got some power. Most of the time, ghouls do. And that is the sad part of ghouls. But in ghoul vassals, as much as they are the punching bags and that's there, they aren't the only group. The independent ghouls. They live a very dangerous existence, struggling to find vitae. They're quite rare, and oftentimes, a lot of times, are considered dangerous to canines. They have no one to give them blood freely, so they have to struggle for it. So, they can go about this in a number of different ways. They come from all places, of course. They are a little bit different from ordinary people. They choose what they will. They could be orphans if their dominator dies, or perhaps for whatever reason broken away. But it is a hard road because they have a few recourses. They can do things like kidnap and kill vampires in order to gain their blood, or be freelance help, taking care of particularly nasty daylight problems. Those are basically the two routes for an independent ghoul. You can either hunt vampires for their blood, or be a freelancer. And that vampire, that canine, might not trust you too much, even as the freelancer, because they might know you're one step away from hunting them for their blood. So it's complicated and difficult. But that's the independent ghoul. Now, more than likely, there is one other group that we can talk about. The final group, Revenants. Revenants are hereditary ghouls. They produce a little bit of vampiric decay in their own blood. Revenants are mostly associated with the Semiche, but aren't. The ones with the Semiche are technically insane, are described as insane cannibalistic freaks who have no place in mortal society. But basically the idea is, if you use a ghoul breeding program, which is a very horrible thing to kind of think about too, because it's a breeding program. Motorcycles at the end of October. They basically create a family of ghouls. It takes generations, it takes effort, but you can create a revenant family. Revenant families are kind of the thing that you kind of have to force to come into existence. It's that unfortunate kind of connection there of, you have to have a breeding program. It's just... you theoretically could happen naturally if you have enough ghouls to do things together for a long period of time, but it doesn't really happen naturally. Not really opportunities in the game. I know, I'm in the middle of my thing. You interrupted me. Give me a second here. Well, for stream needs to interrupt here. Where was I? I was talking about Revenants. So, again, Semiche are the main one, but there are some more Sabbat ones. These are pretty much a relic, a kind of breeding stock. They're kind of out of there. It's not that you couldn't find Revenant families. Again, I'll tell you, most of them are Semiche. There are a few non-Semiche families. There's one that was, that's part of the Bali bloodline. Ancient Revenant family there. There's a group that were originally Semiche, now serves the Tremere. There's one associated with the True Black Hand, one associated with the Asimite Sorcerers. There is a group, the Katayama, who have bred true on their own, in a way. And there's another associate, a couple more associated with the True Black Hand, one with the Giovanni, and one group that is with the Ventru. I'm not going to go too deep into the various different Semiche ghoul families, Revenant families right now. But there are a bunch of them out there. And again, I didn't even talk about it. There's a lot of them that are Semiche. Most of them are. So those other ones that I mentioned are outside of the purview of it. But again, it's also, there is one that bred true themselves. It's a third generation of Revenants that have kind of developed themselves, in a way. So it's not like it can't happen. Oh, no, there's a Revenant family that serves in Cable. So revenants are a thing. And again, probably you were in a little better position if you were a revenant, because drink blood yourself. You know, you create a little bit of that vampire vitae yourself. You've been bred to be like a very, very damp here. If you're going for some other media sources for these kind of things. But that's revenants. I probably could do a little bit more, maybe its own video of revenants, to talk about a bunch of the families and stuff like that at a different point in time, but just keep in mind, they are another group. Now, there are plenty of notable ghouls out there, and let's talk, though, game mechanics. And I'm going to give you the nicest of the ghoul images. The Bruja one. Brujas are very nice there. You know, they've just got some kind of gang members hanging out with them. So, 5th edition, 5th edition just says a ghoul needs to feed a rouse check of vitae, afterwards getting 1 dot in a discipline chosen by the dominator, and healing twice as fast as a standard mortal. And here's where the version differences come in. I'm going to talk about it now. 5th edition is very nice enough to give us 2 things that are a mixed bag in mine. The big thing is playing down the addictive properties of vitae. I feel like that's a very good thing, because using it as very much a drug, unfortunately, means it's got a lot of negative connotations, a lot more, and a lot of the negativity comes about by that. And they also are much more like, it's a lot harder to actually use their vitae, and the effects are generally passive for 5th edition. I think that they should still be able to use it, honestly. The passive effects, whatever, you know. But I like the idea of, honestly, downplaying the addiction, because it means there's more hope for ghouls. I gotta be honest. That's the big thing about it. In previous to 5th edition, you gain a dot in potence, and could theoretically learn more disciplines later on. Celerity, Fortitude, Potence are always available, and then anything the Dominator knows. And depending on the generation of whoever's creating you, maximum discipline level, tends to be like most generations you can get 1 level of discipline. They're immune to delirium and can soak bashing damage, but they can also soak lethal damage on like mortals. That was a thing that they had. They heal like mortals, but can spend blood to heal their damage like the K-Knight. They are prone to frenzy, and suffer from bloodline. So these were kind of like the old ways of doing it. And there are some details on how much of these things fit in with the newer generation of stuff. But again, I keep saying, I both love and hate a lot of 5th edition stuff. You know, that's why I haven't switched to it, because it's just such a mixed bag for me. I'll stick with V20 personally, but again, I can't complain about everything 5th edition does. They do a lot of great things. It's just I really don't like the things they do badly most of the time. So up to you. It's just a little suggestion there. I'm going to quickly go through a number of other ghoul types before we finish up today with some images, but I'm going to say here they are mixed bag. This again is late 90s, early 2000s. Keep it in mind, and keep in mind that I've talked about the ghoul-vampire relationship. We've got the Assamite, Gangrel, and Giovanni, the Sombra, which is a little weird there, Alcavian, Nosferatu, Ravenous, the Cetes, Corridor, Tremere, Simice, and a good flesh monster, and Ventru. Ventru's pretty nice too. Again, like, Ventru actually treats you like more like a servant. But that's ghouls. Yeah. I was talking about how, like, this is an interesting topic to hit into, and certainly now, talking about it, I feel like I can reflect a little more heavy on the fact that a lot of these relationships are not good. And again, if you're a ghoul working for a Ventru, you might have it pretty decently. You might have, like, effectively an abusive boss, but that's a lot better than a slave master or someone that freaking flesh shapes you into a wall. So many of the ancient vampires who lack humanity, or certain clans just treat mortals like dirt. And they do that anyway. But it's sort of like most mortals, they'll just drain you and kill you. Ghouls have to live with it. I think that's the issue. Ghouls have to live with this crap. They're treated just the same way, but they have to live with it. So however that vampire feels about mortals and treats mortals, the ghouls get the brunt of it. And there's where the dynamic of the relationship comes in. It's never going to be a great relationship. Never. But maybe you get lucky and you're the better relationship. But you don't know that because you don't get that choice. It's this interesting dynamic in the vampire system. Because it's that thing of, you as a vampire character, you're playing one, you didn't get a choice to be a vampire. Your sire just created you. Now you have to live with those consequences and figure out what you're doing. But, again, I mentioned earlier, you as the vampire have the power to find a place in the world. That ghoul might not have that opportunity. And maybe they can get away and they can let the blood run close to their system and then just escape. But there are those who have been in the system so long that they'll die if they leave the system. And that's a thing that's dying versus what you're gaining. It's such an odd and dark dynamic. It is one of the things. Maybe it's not like a spooky thing in a traditional sense, but it is the actual relationship between ghouls and vampires, and break it down. And think about it. It is a very, very weird. And there is no real refining the system. Again, I do feel like that chunk of 5th edition, making it less addictive, means those ghouls in 5th edition have a better opportunity to escape, improve things, or to just say, this is not worth it. Maybe we'll see more things of independent ghouls. And honestly, like, as weird as an origin as it is, and as probably weirdly instilled for an origin, because again, even breeding programs are just weird for people, just unnatural, but Revenants, at very least, if you're born into one of those, at least maybe you're a better situation. Mostly, maybe, not so much. Not any of the non-submissions. There's just so much questionable stuff around it, you know? That doesn't mean it's not happening in Vampire the Masquerade. They don't care. They are not human. Your mortal sensibilities, your sense of what's good and bad, those things they care about. And it's an interesting thing when you have to dive into that and confront the darkness in it sometimes. And that's what Vampire the Masquerade is best at. Making you understand a little bit more of those awful things in the world. And fight the monster deep inside. That's the humanity route. Are you trying to retain that humanity that we all have? Or are we just a monster? Well, I think that leaves it off for today. I think we can say it's pretty well for me. I have a couple of things to shout out, of course. I'll shout out my 2 channels, the schedule I have, and my social media. The two channels, those of course, is Twitch and YouTube. I recommend checking both of them out. If you're here on YouTube, follows would be great. Joining me on YouTube, subscription would be great. These are the least things you can do. YouTube has a couple other things. Certainly leaving a comment, talking about your experience with Ghouls. Liking the video, ring the bell if you're already a subscriber, all that kind of stuff. Those are the main engagements you have. Setting the bell to letting you know about everything. That's a thing you have to do. And all those things are just engagements with me. For scheduling, looking for my tabletop stuff, I do live stream it every Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays, early afternoon, usually between 1 and 2. Saturdays around 11 o'clock. Close to it, as much as I can. And then usually these will be uploaded a couple days afterwards onto YouTube. And they become the YouTube uploads of the week. Other things that go up on both. I do live plays. The Crimson Queen is the new one, starting November 1st. I'll take this video a little bit, but you can always see the date on that one. I recommend checking it out. It's a Pathfinder live play. Stream it on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Up on YouTube then. We're doing Curse of the Crimson Throne, the Adventure Path. Interesting characters, great story. We're going to have a lot of fun time with it and do our own little thing with it like we did with Skulls and Shadows. Discussing tabletop Saturday evenings at 9 p.m. or 6 p.m. 9 to 6. We talk about tabletop news of the week, some deeper discussions on topics. Also goes up on YouTube. Some stuff that doesn't go up on YouTube, if you want to check it out, I do gameplay stuff, some variety games. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually around late mornings, noonish, around then. And that's the basic schedule of things. I go to social media, Discord and at Twitter.com if you want to check out those links. I talk about schedules, I give updates on stuff, and generally speaking, some real random brain farts and occasional pictures of things. So those are what I get on my social media if you want to check those out. I think those are all the major shout-outs. I'm going to say to all of you out there, I thought of my list, I said all my things. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this and diving into Ghouls and our topic. But until the next time we talk, I bid all of you out there a farewell.